announcement. XPlane 1050 right now is in release candidate status, and I'm here today to announce that version 1050 is going to go to final status next week. Hey. And so there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 little features that we're going to drop in. And that's it today. So, and I hope y'all enjoyed the presentation. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, for a quick show of hands, how many people already use XPlane? I'm just wondering how to set. Oh, wow. Okay. All right, so that's a good solid 60%. So I'm going to keep this part of the presentation super brief. As you probably already know, if you use XPlane, XPlane does not imitate the way an aircraft flies, right? You never go to XPlane and say, "Why, I cruise at 400 knots and climb at 5,000 feet per minute." XPlane doesn't care what you want. It doesn't know what you want. It doesn't care. With XPlane, you enter the geometry of the aircraft, the wingspan, the control deflections, the horsepower, the engine thrust, et cetera, and then XPlane interacts those dynamics, those physics, that physical property of the aircraft with the air to predict what the airplane is going to do next. It actually drags that wing through the air. It interacts the air with the airfoil at each of a number of sections. It does this on the wing, the horizontal stab, the vertical stab, the propeller. And based on that, it actually builds up the forces on the aircraft many times per second. Once you've built up the forces on the airplane, you can divide by the mass and moment of inertia of the aircraft, to turn that into accelerations, integrate the accelerations to velocities, integrate the velocities to positions, and you are moving through space, which is exactly what airplanes do. So XPlane is a physics-based model, which makes it different from pretty much any other simulator I know about. That's XPlane, and I first started it this way 21 years ago. Well, I released it to the market about 21 years ago, back in 1995. I first started coding it maybe 23, 24 years ago, because that was the only way I could think of to do it. It just never occurred to me to say, let me imitate the airplane. The only way I could think to do it was say, well, let's just find out what it's going to do by interacting each bit of the aircraft with the air. That's why I did it the way I did. It's been 21 years, and we're coming through version 10 right now. And what we're going to talk about today is that little upgrade from 1051 release candidate to 1051 final. And maybe something else also. Let's see. What do we got, Ben?
So we've had a pretty big last 5 years. 5 years ago, we released XPlane 10.0. We completely redid the AutoGen system. It was a completely new AutoGen system using OpenStreetMap data to get accurate buildings with the complete world road grid.
Can we drop the lights on the screen?
Oh, you know what?
Let's see if we can yank a light or two.
Yeah, I guess you probably can see that.
Or is our own aerodynamics?
That getting darker?
Yeah.
There we go.
That's good to see it now.
Yeah.
That's better.
There we go. In 2013, we released a 64-bit version of XPlane. In 2014, we put the new X430 and X530 GPSs in, a complete redo of the GPS. It's extremely accurate if you've tried using it. It's got a huge amount of functionality. If you don't know how to use a Garmin, it's completely mystifying. In 2015, we did the first digital download version of XPlane, so you can get the product immediately and download the scenery you want. In 2016, we did another update, and we shipped yet more AutoGen. We redid the cities. We got tall buildings into it. We've also done the XPlane Airport Scenery Gateway, which is where users can customize their airport with Lego brick airport elements, terminals, and baggage trucks, and all these elements, and share them with other users by uploading them to a server we run. And this has been way more successful than we expected. We have over 3,000 airports since we've been doing this.
Over 3,500.
That's right. I made a slide, and then I got an email from Julian saying, we just got 250 more airports, we're past 3,500. We have gotten over 500 new 3D airports every time we've done a major patch at XPlane. Each time we do this, we go, wow, that's incredible. Well, it's going to taper off, and it doesn't. So we've been blown away by what people have been able to do with XPlane to do this. We've also had phenomenal third-party add-ons coming. That's the IZEG 737 in the upper right. Flight Factor is in a number of airliners, including the 757. PMDG came to XPlane last year. People said, well, I'll look at XPlane when PMDG comes, and they're here. The CRJ was one of the first airliners with FMC for XPlane 10. I don't know if you guys have seen Airfoil Labs, their Cessna 172. You can walk around the entire thing. It's got a level of just detail that's phenomenal. SkyMax 3 is out. Again, it looks just absolutely amazing. The Air Cadets are using XPlane for their simulation. Fly2Sim has fantastic hardware integration. Coronado has a full G1000 for XPlane. And Reality XP just announced that they're doing their what's it called, the 650, 750 Touch, and it's going to be out for XPlane first. So we've just seen really fantastic third-party adoption for XPlane. This is the FlyJ-Sim 727, which I just love because it's got so many steam gauges. It looks fantastic. And this is a statistic from our analytics. 50% of the flights that happen on XPlane are done with third-party aircraft. So people are using XPlane, they're adding to it, and they're having just an amazing flight simulation experience. So XPlane 10, it's FAA certifiable. The pieces you get out of it, you can make engineering decisions with it. You can evaluate your designs. We have hardware instancing. We're 64-bit. We have global lighting and HDR, and we use OpenStreetMap for our scenery. So it's been a really strong 5 years for us. All right, thank you for coming. That's all we got.
Why don't we turn it up to 11? Let's turn it up to 11. All right,
You want to make a big announcement?
okay, so what we're doing now is we're going to have XPlane 11 out by the end of this year. And starting now, any purchase of XPlane 10 digital download will also work with XPlane 11 digital download when it comes out. So if anybody is excited about getting into XPlane 11, but they don't want to blow a whole lot of money in XPlane 10 for a short period of time, all purchases of XPlane 10 now will cover both 10 and 11. So anybody that's on the fence and wondering whether they want to get in, now would be a great time to give it a try. So we're going to turn it up to 11, and I guess Ben is going to start on. We've got 95 slides, and it's only the tip of the iceberg as to what we've done. And what we've done is only the tip of the iceberg to all the stuff we initially even set out to do.
Do you guys want to see some of the 11 stuff? Do you want to see a little bit of it?
Yay!
All right, so we'll let Ben go through a lot of details here.
All right, so we've got a couple things to talk about for the next major release of XPlane 11. The user interface, the aircraft, the scenery, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be out of time by the time that's over, because when we're putting this together, we kept saying, oh, but there's this other thing. Let's start with the user interface. This is a screenshot of XPlane 10's user interface.
Which I like, because I know exactly what every little thing does, and I can control it all perfectly.
You can't say it's not powerful, but we've gotten a pretty consistent piece of feedback, which is, I love to look at XPlane, but it's hard to set up, it's confusing, I'm not sure if this is for me. So we looked at this and we said, we think we can do a better user interface. But Austin had one bit of guidance for us.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
He said, you can't make it so simple that you take away the power. XPlane is a powerful simulator that gives you a lot of control. It has a huge amount of functionality. You can't dumb it down. So we had to find a way to give you all the flexibility and all the control while still making it easy to get into as a new user and fast to use as an experienced user. So that was the challenge. So what we've tried to do is come up with something that has lots of power and lots of flexibility, but also has visual presentation so you can find things easily, so that you can easily configure it. And we've got a little bit of a demo of this recorded from Tyler, who's one of our engineers who did a lot of work on this. Let's see if we can make this work.
Hey Cosford, I'm Tyler Young, and for the last 2.5 years, I have been working on a brand new user interface for XPlane 11, and today I get to show it off. I'm going to start by talking about what it's like to set up a flight in XPlane 11. We got a lot of feedback in XPlane 10 that people liked the quick flight screen, where you set up your aircraft and your location and your weather and so on, all from one screen. And we've got a lot of requests to make that quick flight screen more powerful. People want to change their livery, or choose a ramp start, or have more control over the weather, and so on. And we took those requests to heart. So the XPlane 11 flight configuration screen is really a successor to the quick flight screen. The goal here was to make the most important details about your flight available at a glance in one place, with the ability to drill down and see the details in each of those sections. So we wanted this to be the way that you edit a flight. No more having to go through the aircraft screen to pick an aircraft or go to the location screen to pick a ramp start and so on. Every aspect of your flight is configurable from this one place. So let's start by looking at the aircraft. You can see we have this grid view where you can scroll visually through all of your aircraft. The old folder hierarchy is gone, and instead we have these filters up top that are so much more powerful. So I can, for instance, filter by the aircraft's classification. Let's pick an airliner. Or by the number of engines, we can pick 2. Manufacturer, let's pick McDonnell Douglas. And you see we've narrowed down our potentially huge aircraft collection down to just what we were looking for. And these filters scale to thousands of aircraft, as many as you could realistically install. It'll be easy to find exactly the one you're looking for. And you just can't say that for a folder hierarchy. If we click Customize here, you can see that we can set the details of the aircraft. We've got the livery up here. You can either choose from the drop-down or just scroll through the list, and you can see exactly what that livery is going to look like on your plane. If we open the weight and balance screen, you see we've got this nice graph on the right that animates as you change your fuel weight and your load. We've got the ability to swap between metric and imperial units. I'm sure nobody in England here is excited about that. If we go back and open the failure screen, I think this is more or less what you expect. You've got lots of different failures in lots of different categories. But if you look up at the top, you've got a search box. And like all of the tables throughout the XPlane 11 user interface, you can search this. The fact is that no matter how well we as developers organize the failures, it's just never going to be as easy as searching because there are just so many options. So now you open the failures, you type a search like fuel, and you see all of your fuel-related failures all in one place. Now if we move on to setting the location, you can see this is very similar to the existing quick flight screen. We type in some text, maybe Atlanta, but when you click Customize, you get this visual location picker. This is an overview of the airport with all of the ramp starts, all the runway starts, all annotated on a map. So we can just zoom in on these ramp starts here and select exactly the place we'd like to start. This one's C22. Or maybe we just know that we want to go to the south of the airport, so we can drag over there and pick something there. Now, with our location chosen, let's go back to the main screen and take a look at the weather. Here we can drag the slider to go through the different presets, or like location and aircraft, if we click Customize, we get all the details. Here in the center pane, we have the visual weather editor, so we can click on a cloud layer and drag it around. We can raise its top or change its base. And up at the top here, we can click Add Cloud Layer, and we can drag that one around. And then the wind works the same way. You click Add Wind Layer, and you can drag the wind layer around. In the Properties pane on the left, you can change its speed or its turbulence, and so on. And finally, if you're using real weather, you get a preview that looks much the same. You can click on individual layers to get details about them, and so on. So that's setting up the flight. Now once we start the flight, we can come back to this screen and edit the flight from the same interface. I'm going to skip ahead here so you don't have to watch XPlane load. But you can see that as we change the weather and the time, you get the option to either apply your changes or discard them. If we click Apply, you'll see that those changes take effect. Now, similar to the flight setup, these settings are now all housed in one window. No more going to 10 different windows to configure the sim initially. You just go through the different tabs in the settings. There are a few areas that I want to highlight, and the first is the joystick. Like the rest of the UI, we've tried to make this very visual. You click on the button you want to assign to, and you choose its function. If we click Edit here for this button, you can see we can search through all of the available commands. We type flaps, and there we've got flaps up set for this button. This makes it so much easier to see on the whole what's assigned to which buttons on your joystick. Now this visual assignment won't be available for all flight controls. We can't get pictures of every piece of hardware ever made, but we are planning to be able to ship with more than about 70% of users getting this nice visual experience, and we'll add more later. The other area of the settings I want to highlight is the networking. Who has not been annoyed trying to figure out IP addresses when you're trying to network the sim? This is just a perpetual pain for anyone using a network flight sim. And so in XPlane 11, we perform as much of that configuration as we can automatically. So if I'm running XPlane on this computer and I turn on another machine that's configured as an external visual, you'll see it's going to appear in the right side there. Boom. That machine is connected to mine now, and my machine starts sending in data, all without me touching a thing. The same goes for turning on an instructor operator station. If I watch the right here, that iOS is now connected to this machine. This works for iPhone and iPad apps as well. On the whole, networking configuration is getting a lot more hands-off in XPlane 11. So that's all I have time for. I think you're going to find the XPlane 11 user interface to be easy to learn, and as you get comfortable with it, much faster to configure the sim just the way you want. And that was the goal, to have a user interface that just gets out of the way and lets you fly the way you want to. I can't wait to get this in your hands in November, and I can't wait to hear your feedback. Thanks very much.
Great.
Yay.
What's so cool about that for me is I look at that, I can see every little bit of power that I've coded into XPlane over the last 21 years, and none of it's gone, none of it's missing. It's just so much easier to get access to. And that's what we're really doing. As XPlane moves to more of a mainstream product, I will never give up any of the power or flexibility or realism. We're only going to make it more fun and easy and accessible to use. And that's like a driving undercurrent, one of the driving undercurrents behind the whole thing.
We saw a lot of hands from people who have already used XPlane. If you already know how to use our user interface, just the search feature will change your life. XPlane has over 1,300 separate commands you can bind to your joystick, and there's more in 11, significantly more. So it's fantastic for cockpit builders and people who want detail, but it always made it hard to find things. And being able to just say, where are the flaps? Flap, you're done. It saves huge amounts of time. This is just for comparison, this is XPlane 10's weather. This is XPlane 11's weather. So all the detail is there, and you can always type exactly what you want, but you can also see it.
All the detail is there. None is lost, just better access.
One other thing about the user interface before we move on to the next thing, we've done a lot of things to embrace multi-monitor. How many people here have more than one monitor on their PC? Of course you do, because everyone's video card does 2 monitors, and the monitors have gotten really cheap. So in XPlane 11, a number of the displays you want while you fly, your map, your air traffic control, they float over your flight display, but you can undock them and get them off your main monitor, and you can put them somewhere else, and you can resize them. Furthermore, the X430 and the X530, the GPS devices, which pop out, they also undock, so you can move them over and you can get those out of the way. And most importantly, you can actually have 2 out-the-window displays on 2 monitors, or an iOS on any screen you want. So we have much more powerful and flexible multi-monitor support. You simply say, I want this for my left monitor, I want this for my middle monitor, I want this for my right monitor. I will say one thing though, just to set expectations. If you have one machine driving 2 displays, it will not be as fast as if you have 2 machines driving 2 displays, because there's half as many cores doing it. But if you've been using one machine that's been driving 3 using 185 degrees of field of view, you now have the option to get a left view, a center view, and a right view. So these are just some of the things we've done for the user interface. Should we take a look at some airplanes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so our art team has been pretty hard at work. I've got a few pictures of the fleet. This is coming to XPlane 11. This is entirely new 737 NG. The 3D cockpit looks phenomenal. We have completely rebuilt the Cessna from the ground up. I thought our old Cessna was pretty good, but when you look at the new one, the amount of detail that Max has gotten in is just phenomenal. It looks really cool. The 3D cockpit is also really, really detailed. We're going to get this out for XPlane Global finally. This has been in the works for I don't know how long. We've had this
more than 10 years
in the hangar. Yes, but the MD-80 is coming, and again the cockpit looks great. The 747 has gotten a huge overhaul. The entire 3D cockpit has been rebuilt and is much more usable, much more accurate, and will have a significant avionics upgrade. We're finally getting a new helicopter. We're going to ship the S76, and again, it's got great 3D. The Cirrus Jet got a significant rebuild, and we've also replaced the glider. The King Air and the Baron were overhauled for XPlane 1050, and that was the beginning of a process we started of trying to get all of our aircraft to have a consistent high level of quality. Everything in the cockpit you need for IFR flight has to be clickable and work. All the mouse movement should be consistent. Mouse wheel support for the gauges, and so we're pushing this through for more of our fleet. All right. Austin, you want to talk a little bit about the flight model?
Sure. Can you give me the bullet points? You got this?
Sure.
Okay, so this is my new bird. I'm now operating a PT6, And from time to time, back when I was flying reciprocating engine airplanes, people would email me and say, "Show your PT6 model." And I didn't really know exactly what that meant, because I figured, well, you can put in 850 horsepower, you get out 850 horsepower, that's a PT6 model, right? Not really. A PT6 is almost like an organic beast, like a steam engine. There's no two PT6 engines in the world that are quite the same, because with every PT6, as they wear down, as all those little compressor blades and fans wear down, you just advance the throttle more and more, a little more each flight than you did the flight before, to get the same power output out of the engine. This engine's changing over time, and they can be rigged up differently by the shops as well. So all PT6s are different, and they all have these distinctive feels to them, and we're actually starting to get that kind of feel into XPlane. Right, so here's my little bird during an engine start test. And that's what happens when you play with the fuel pump a little bit before you start the engine. So it's a very dynamic, scary little beast, the PT6 is. An interesting thing about this engine is if you do anything wrong, it will actually melt itself in flight. So here's what happens. There's combustion that happens kind of like in the core, and there's these currents of air, cold air, around that combustion that insulate the engine walls from the combustion that's happening in the engine. If that insulating wall of air were ever to break down, the combustion would leak out to the sides of the engine and destroy it. And the fascinating thing is, what you need to keep this insulating wall of air going is enough RPM. And because higher RPM brings in more insulating air, there's a wide range across which the airplane actually gets cooler, or the engine gets cooler, the harder you're running it, up to a certain point. And it actually idles with a higher temperature than it cruises. I can actually idle up closer to 800 and cruise at 600 degrees turbine inlet temperature. So what you've got with the PT6 is this compressor back here, where the air comes into the inlet, it's compressed, has the fuel at it, comes forward, moves through a little turbine that's hooked up to the propeller. And there's no physical connection between the compressor and the propeller. The compressed hot air is coming forward, running through a little turbine or a little windmill inside the engine, is geared down by like 50 to 1 or 100 to 1 and hooked up to the prop. And so you've got this kind of strange situation where you're dumping in fuel, you're speeding up and slowing down a turbine, the temperature goes higher, the slower you go, and the more fuel you put in until the turbine eventually spins up, brings in the insulating air, brings the temperature back down, and then the air coming forward goes to the little windmill that hooks up to the prop and spins the prop up. And you really have this feel of all this airflow and fuel and temperature that you're managing throughout the whole flight. And if you manage it properly, a PT6 will fly for 2,000 hours without needing maintenance or overhaul. But if you do it wrong, you can destroy it like that. And so it's a fascinating little engine, and it's been fun learning how to operate it in my airplane. And once I recorded some engine starts and operation on my phone, and recorded time-stamped, when temperatures and RPMs changed. Went and got all the code just right in XPlane to follow that perfectly. And then the first time I flew XPlane, once I'd done all the analytical, mathematical stuff to get my engine model just right, the first time I flew that PT6 in XPlane.
And we had Philip Munzel talk a little bit about some of the work that he's been doing.
Hello,